Uh, oh, sorry about that. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight, those in our audience and those on the board. Let's start out with our introductions tonight, and I'm excited to say we have a new face on the board. So I'll start out with Dawn Doctor. I'm the South Sound District 2 representative. And let's go on over to Chris, our new member. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Breon. I'm Central Kitsap, I think District 3. Yep, District 3. Excited to be on the board. Just a little bit about me. I've been an active participant and user of the park since I was a teenager, back when it was still Kitsap Parks and Recreation. I was a lifeguard out at Island Lake and Wildcat. Grew up using the soccer fields. I'm actually part of both soccer clubs around here, Kitsap Alliance and Tracyton, so we have a very vested interest in what's happening at Gordon. My son likes to play, I was corrected earlier, disc golf, so he's been using the course out there, and then I hike a lot out at Newberry, the Heritage Park out there, as well as Port Gamble. So excited to be a part of this and help kind of shape what's going forward.
Nancy Whitaker, Central Kitsap. Linda Berry Mare, North Kitsap.
Larry, let's go with you up there.
Larry Walker, South Kitsap.
Jessica?
And Jessica Rice, South Kitsap.
Jen?
Hey there, I'm Jen Skalbeck. I'm from North Kitsap in Kingston.
And let's go ahead and introduce staff. Would you like to start, Alex?
I'm Alex Wisniewski, Parks Director.
I'm Alex Hardy, Admin and Events Supervisor.
Do we have anybody online from staff? Okay, and Irene will be coming in a few minutes. Let's see. What's next on my agenda here? Okay, everybody should have gotten a chance to read the minutes. Did I forget something? Oh, thank you, thank you. See, this is why I need lots of help. We just have a few remarks that I like to read before to remind everybody about behavior during our meetings and how to do different things. So good evening. Thank you for participating in our remote regular meeting of the Parks Advisory Board. And we will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation and ask that everyone be patient as we navigate the electronic platform. We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application as well as the teleconference. Before we begin, we want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your communication devices such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we are not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. During the meeting, all participants on Zoom, except for board members and county staff, will be placed on mute by the host. That means that you will not be able to mute or unmute your lines manually. This just does not look like the right thing to me. The chair will announce opportunities for the public comment, which are included on the meeting agenda. And for the Zoom, if you would like to make public comment, please click on the raised hand feature to signal that you would like to comment. The sound will be unmuted and the internet participant should announce their first and last name before speaking. The participant will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. For those of you calling in using a phone line only, if you would like to make public comment, please dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. The last 4 digits of the call-in number will be announced, and call-in participants should announce their first and last name before speaking. The participant will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. Please note that you can hang up or leave the Zoom meeting at any time. And thank you for coming. Everybody should have read the minutes that were sent out with the packet.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the minutes of May 20th.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Larry?
Just a technical correction here, and then I will second the motion. In the parks report, Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park, ribbon cutting for, it says North Gateway instead of North Gateway. So just technical correction there, but I will second the motion.
And I accept the friendly amendment to add an H. Sorry.
Okay, we have a first, a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, nothing other than the adding of the H. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as. Oh, thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the H added, please raise your right hand. All in favor? All opposed? Raise your left hand. Okay. All right, minutes have passed as written with the correction. What's next? Public comment. Thank you.
Here, you have a screenshot of the agenda.
Yeah, I do, but then I keep going away, so I have to keep coming back to it. Sorry, I don't have an agenda tonight right yet in front of me, so I'm totally lost. But we have public comment, and it looks like we have somebody in the room that would like public comment. We'll start off with Catherine.
Sure.
Please turn the mic on, give me your first and last name. And just a reminder, we try to keep them at below 3 minutes.
Oh, is it on? Okay. Sure. My name is Catherine Ander. I'm the lead volunteer with my husband, Dan, for Coulter Creek Heritage Park, which is over in Port Orchard. So I'd just like to come and talk a little bit about some of the work we're doing there. You may know that Coulter Creek is a beautiful heritage park that has yet to have a formal park plan and get development. But in the meantime, what we're doing there is noxious weed abatement and trail maintenance so that when that park plan is ready, we're ready and the public is welcome and we'll have something lovely to come to. So we're excited about that. I just wanted to make another comment though. As many times as I've come to this meeting and I've heard from other folks in the community, what I've heard is just a fair amount of distress and maybe confusion about what it means to maintain a trail. And this goes from people having different opinions about how wide the trail should be, what kind of brushing should be done, how high and so forth. And what has struck me is that we seem to have, the confusion seems to be a lack of standard, that there's not a central standard that we have. And if you have this and I'm not familiar with it, please excuse me, but as a volunteer, I didn't get a specific direction about that. But what I follow is the Forest Service standard for trail maintenance. And I do that because it's a common and accepted standard for trail maintenance. It's what Washington Trails Association uses for their trails. And I work on those crews. And it just makes sense to have something that then there's not arguing about what does it mean to remove leaf mold on the trail? What does it do? And are we harming the trail if we do cut back a certain way? And so I think that there's so much, people love the park so much that I think it would maybe limit some of the distress and maybe clear up some of the confusion. So that was my pitch to you, is that there be something formal. And then that's my first pitch, is to have a formal standard that is a universal standard we can adopt. But then my second pitch is this, is that everything is simply a piece of paper unless it's implemented in such a way that people can understand it and that they are educated to it. So in other words, we could walk out of the room today and say, we're using Forest Service standards. There you go, everybody. But it doesn't mean that people will understand it, adopt it, know how to apply it, or accept it. And so it really needs to come out with some support for volunteers so that they're supported not only with this is how we do things, but this is how we can help you. And if you have questions, this is, we're gonna help you do your best work, and our parks are going to meet a common standard for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Rick Feeney. I've got South Kitsap Park, and there's a couple things I wanted to let you guys know. I think you probably know about it, but probably about on at least 5 occasions, people have thrown cut up logs and stuff into the lanes on both Lund and on Jackson. Generally, it's the same night, and they do it in 2 different places. It's happened at least 5 times. There was a car that got a flat, and they're throwing logs this big, and on both lanes, they're skirting the whole lanes, and it's happened about in the last month or 2 months. It's happened at least 5 times out of the park. They're taking the lumber out of the park and they're tossing it on the road, and then they're having cars run over it and stuff. They're doing it like at, midnight to, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. Then I'm on the non-motorized committee, so I have it both from the roadside and from the park side on that. I'd also like to mention that we still have kids on the non-motorized transportation going into the park and going down my street in the middle of Jackson. Yesterday there was a 10-year-old on a motorized, and she came up, and I'm on the parallel road, the frontage road on Jackson, and she was talking to the 2 other kids that were on theirs, and she rode right back behind me, and I was in gear, ready to back out of my driveway, and luckily I saw them. We got to do something. And I know it's a worldwide and a nationwide problem. But, and luckily the state did something. I think it's pared down the numbers a little bit, but I'm still seeing a lot on Jackson. And with that, thank you.
thank you, Rick. Do we have anyone on or anyone else? Right? Did you want to speak? I did. Bradley.
My name is Bradley Berry, no relation. I don't have any comment. Well, yeah, there's a Free Hub magazine. It's a bike-specific magazine for types of mountain biking, road biking. They're doing a movie demonstration up at Port Gamble, a nighttime event on August 8th. Sourdough Willie's Pizza, some lemonade, family event. You should come hang out, see what people do or don't, whatever. But that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you're coming. You should speak up, right? Hang on. I'm gonna let people, and then I'm gonna try to, can you speak at the end if you have a second comment? How's that? All right. Online, or do we have somebody? Beverly?
Thanks, everyone. I'm Beverly Parsons from Hansville. I just wanted to thank Alex Wisniewski and Carmen Smith for meeting with several of us who are interested in the focus of the contract for the update of the Port Gamble Heritage Park framework. That's included in the director's report for this meeting, I see. And I'm simply eager to hear from the PAB about your thoughts on the contract and what your priority interests are for that work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Beverly. Do we have anyone else online? Joe?
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Lubisher from Indianola. Man, did you hear any of that?
No, we did not hear that. Could you start over again, Joe?
Um, Indeed. So good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Lubisher from Indianola, and I wanted to respond to Catherine's statement. I totally understand why there are different opinions about how to manage trails, and we've certainly had more than our share of those kind of discussions at North Kitsap Heritage Park. Um, so there are a couple things. One is that different parks and different parts of parks call for different kind of trails. Another is that the Forest Service standards, those are made for pack animal trails. It's a very different situation, in national forests than we have in the heritage parks. Um, we do have a wide range of stuff. There's the 30-foot wide gravel roads up at Port Gamble and North Kitsap. We've got some relatively narrow 3-foot treads. And we have found that people like the small trails, where you've got salal and shrubbery coming right up to the edge of the trail. We don't need the flattening that WTA does to meet Forest Service standards, taking out curves. People like the just working with the terrain. So there is real advantage in having some more minimal design standards, but I don't think that going with the Forest Service standard is a single answer to all the trails and all the parks is going to be, I don't think that's going to work in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else online? Okay.
Alex, I was wondering if you were going to clarify what the adopted standard is. It seemed like there were questions.
We don't have adopted standards currently for trails. That is one of the things that we recognize needs to happen. And the approach that we have used and will likely move towards in the future for adopting trail standards across the entire park system is adopting the Forest Service trail standards. There isn't a single trail standard within the Forest Service standards. There is a spectrum of them, from your minimalistic 12-foot earthen kind of single track type tread to your highly developed multimodal regional type trails and everything in between. And yeah, Joe is right. There are standards that are specific for pack animals, for equestrian, for even motorcycles, but we would only adopt those that are appropriate for our park system. But there would be multitude. So it would be like trail standards 1 through 6. And then there is the application of those in a specific park system, which says this trail is going to be maintained to standard 1. This trail over here is for a different purpose, and it's going to be maintained to standard 3. And those have different widths, different brushing corridors that come with that. And that will help guide maintenance. We have not done all of that for nearly any of the parks, except for Port Gamble and what is in the draft framework. And in that draft framework, we did use the Forest Service standards in a draft application. The intent is, as we move forward, and with Coulter specifically, when we get into the master planning effort, that's when we would look to adopt the appropriate standards for the trails based on the intended use. Since we haven't done that, we just haven't got there yet. We are years behind where I would like to be, but we're working in that direction. That was too long, but that was my answer.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and let you speak one more time.
With the maintenance of the park, I noticed the fire department came for the volunteer fire department had their fun run last week, and the northern part of the park had not been maintained at all, myself included. I hadn't gone and trimmed it. Normally that one's the major trail, so it gets trimmed by a tractor or something. I don't know. I did have to go and trim. I've spent 16 hours trimming up the north section. We're now there for four sections of 3 hours to do it for the fire department. So, and it was really enclosing itself. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your stewardship efforts, Rick.
Could I ask something real quick? Because it popped into my head and I haven't had an opportunity to ask the question. So, Thanksgiving last year at Newberry Hill, we had an incident and I thought all the fire departments, they're double locked so that there's a lock for the park and a lock for the fire department, but the ambulance didn't know how to get in. It was unlocked, so all we had to do was just move the gate and come in. But it could have been a problem if there was more, we had somebody run over by a deer, honest, like wind knocked out of him. But so we did have the ambulance come and they didn't know how to get in and they didn't know the easiest way to get to a hospital from there. They were asking for our input. So just thought I'd bring that up, that probably needs to be addressed with the various fire departments.
Thank you. I'm sure it will be. So we're going to move on to special presentations. New board member, Chris, introduced himself. Did you want to say anything else? Okay, thank you. And the 2027 budget cuts. Would you please address those? Okay. Thanks, Alex.
All right, my least favorite presentation. This is the second year in a row having to provide a presentation to the Parks Advisory Board discussing budget challenges that the county is facing and what the county as an organization is doing about them, how it impacts the Parks Department, and what internal to the Parks Department we are doing to meet our targeted budget cuts. So on that, I have a few slides to walk through with you all, and starting out with a brief recap of why we are having some budget challenges. And very simply put, the county finds itself in a position where it has what's called a structural imbalance. And this, very simply put, just means costs are rising faster than revenue is rising for the county. And this is not, unfortunately, a Kitsap County only challenge. A lot of the counties and cities across the entire state, as well as the state of Washington, are having budget challenges primarily related to expenses exceeding projections. So a couple bullets on the top here. The past 10 years, property tax revenue, it's one of the primary contributors to the county's general fund. And everything I'm talking about tonight is about specifically to the county's general fund. The county has a lot of other funding mechanisms that go into providing different services. But the one kind of grand pot of money that comes in from sales tax, from property tax, and from a variety of other services for fees and et cetera, come into this pot, and then that gets doled out to different departments. Some of it comes to parks, some of it goes to internal services like human resources, IT, HR. Some goes to providing funding for our public response folks, the sheriff's office, the prosecuting attorney's office, the jail, juvenile detention, et cetera. So it is the one pot of money that is not the only one that's challenged right now, but it is the one that I'm kind of focusing on in this discussion. So in the past 10 years, property tax, which is one of the primary drivers of the county's general fund, has grown by 21%, but has seen expenses rise by 46%. So this shows, very by numbers that we have an issue. That we are simply not keeping up on the revenue side. Within the county, the greatest expense is staff. It's people. This is not uncommon to governments. It's not uncommon to businesses. People are generally the biggest expense line for operations, for salaries and benefits in this case. Salaries and benefits are projected to increase by more than $7 million from 2026 to 2027. And some of this is premised on the CPI. So the Consumer Price Index was a calculator of inflation from one year to the next. And this past year, we did a bunch of union contract updates. And the CPI was built into that as the indicator for wage increases from year to year. That wage indicator from 26 to 27 sits at 4.9%. So that is much larger than what the county was anticipating. They had projected 2.5% from 26 to 27. So it has thrown off our own projections in the wrong direction. The other item that has really kind of blown the budget this year are medical claim expenses. And these have come in about 3 times higher than what was expected and what was budgeted this year. And so now it is kind of forcing us to read those tea leaves and project out further into the next year for 27, kind of seeing that those rates are going to continue to climb. In total, the county is projecting a $9.4 million budget gap for 2027. And so that is kind of where we sit. This chart I grabbed from the most recent budget letter that came out to the departments. It's also available to the public too, but this kind of shows in numbers the challenges the county is having. Just a quick reference on here, you'll see this top half identifies the general fund revenue sources, or the revenue sources coming into the general fund over the course of years. It shows 25, 26, and then projecting out 27, 28, and 29. Under the blue band are our expenditures anticipated for out of the general fund. And then the big one to pay attention to is in the red. And this is that identifies that shortfall, that projected shortfall on the general fund budget. And of course, you see the 9.4 million there for 2027. But also need to point out that future years also don't look good, that this is not anticipated to be a one-time blip for Kitsap County. So the structural challenge doesn't just go away. So what is the county doing about it? And some of these items on here, this isn't Parks Department specific. This is looking at the county as an organization. The board is freezing official salary increases for all of the electeds. So not just the 3 county commissioners, but also the electeds in all of the other offices, treasurer, assessor, etc. Everybody else we all vote for. They are encouraging increasing fees to improve revenue projections. So not solely looking at expense reductions, but also looking at the other side of the equation and identifying areas where we might be able to be more proactive in increasing revenue. They are also but working on regionalization of juvenile detention services to reduce costs. The service cost here apparently is really expensive, and they're looking for opportunities to join forces with others in the area to bring those costs down. The next item here is exploring the use of House Bill 2015. If you're not familiar, which I wasn't until this year, House Bill 2015 is a state law. It was passed in 2025, and it provides, no, it was passed in 2025. That's just the House Bill number. Yeah. It was passed in 2025, and so it's new, and it gives local government jurisdictions the authority to initiate a small sales tax increase, which is 1/10 of 1%. So relatively small overall, but it can pack a big punch for those local governments. And as represented here, if approved, this would generate new general fund revenue in approximate $7.5 million range. And in order for this to pass, it is what's called a councilmanic opportunity, meaning it does not need to go to the voters. It can be passed by the elected commissioners. And it only needs to be passed by a simple majority. It does not need to be unanimous. So we have 3 elected officials in the county. This could be passed by 2 of the 3 voting yes. But that vote has not happened yet. That's still being considered. So what they have done, the electeds to the departments, as well as the other elected offices, they have directed us to generate 2 budgets for this year or for 2027. One which assumes that they will pass HB 2015, and the other one assumes that they don't. And there's a couple caveats on these. If they, in the budget A on the screen, the one that assumes this passes and generates an additional $7.5 million, you'll recall the budget gap is still 9.4, so we're still not quite reaching the end game here. But we would still need to take on budget cuts in order to achieve the remaining $1.9 million deficit. But if they do that, they have directed us not to do any public-facing service reductions. So we have to take the cuts without reducing services to the public. In budget B, this one is, and this assumes that House Bill 2015 is not approved by the county commissioners. In this case, the budget gap remains at that 9.4 million, and the spread of that dollar figure across the departments is significant. And I'll show that momentarily. And if this is the direction we end up in, they have granted us approval to reduce services to the general public. So, oh my gosh, you can't see that. That is very tiny. So what does this mean for parks? Let me see if I can increase this. Apologies. Okay. So just for orientation, these are the 2027 budget targets. You will see 2 different columns over here, the option A and the option B. The option A is if House Bill 2015 is approved by the commissioners. Option B is if they decide not to do it. And then you have the various departments and elected offices down the side, and what those cut targets will mean for parks. which is right in the middle here. If we are moving towards the option A, our cut target is $55,209 in comparison to our 2026 budget. If our option B, this is the significant jump, does not get approved, then we are at nearly $372,000 reduction. At this point, we don't know which way we are going, which is why we've been directed to draft two different budgets. So let me go back to here. What are we doing to meet the targeted budget cuts? Okay, sorry for that. So you'll recall we had to do some budget cuts in 2026. That was just shy of $200,000. And now in 27, we are exploring the option A, and option B. This is a process that we are still working through and doing the calculations. These budget cut targets just came to us on Monday. So the budget call letter just came out. So we don't have specific dollar figures to share tonight, but I can at least talk with you generally about what we are exploring. So in the option A, obviously, this is the most ideal situation between the two that we're given. We would be able to absorb the budget cuts without impacting any staff positions, either current staff or vacant and frozen positions currently. So this is obviously what we want. And we would not reduce any services, so you wouldn't see any reductions to any of the other items that are on the screen there. And with the option B, pretty much everything is on there as a yes, because we're likely going to need all tools available to us to achieve this large deficit, this large dollar amount. This would definitely have an impact on staffing. We currently have 4 vacant positions that we have been holding, knowing that the budget cuts are coming and not exactly knowing what the dollar amount was or how it was going to impact us. So we didn't want to be in a position of never want to lay off existing working staff. So doing our best to hold on to opportunities to avoid that. I do want to draw some attention to the bottom line there, though. This is brand new as of 2025 also. And this across the bottom, it says use REIT funding for maintenance. REIT funding, if you'll recall, typically we only talk about for our capital projects. REIT stands for Real Estate Excise Tax, and it is a tax that is generated when housing is constructed and sold. And that comes into a portion of that comes to the county and is available for us to use for capital projects. But the state made a change in the REIT laws in 2025. And in that change, they have broadened the definition of what REIT can be spent on. And they are now allowing REIT to be spent on maintenance. And it's not a open-ended amount of maintenance. It does have parameters on it. But it does give us the opportunity to take some maintenance expenses that we're currently holding in the general fund, move them over to be REIT funded, which would then free up general fund monies, which would go away as part of our budget cut. And that would be a tactic for us to maintain service levels, not have to cut operational budgets because we would just be utilizing a different funding source. And that would be a win-win. So we are hopeful of that. Granted, it does restrict or limit then the amount of REIT funding that is available for capital projects because REIT is only so large. But that is a new funding avenue that we are exploring to use as part of meeting our budget targets. So more to come on that. Okay. We also have, if you'll recall last year when we did this, we also talked about a hiring freeze. That hiring freeze started on June 9th in 2025. It has been extended a couple times and remains in place today. And so what this does, or the attempt here, is that when there is staff departures, those positions are frozen in an attempt to kind of force a savings on salary expenditures. However, there are some exceptions to the rule. There are certain types of positions that are allowed to not be frozen, move forward for rehiring. And those would be like sheriff's officers and those really attentive to public safety that are called, critical positions. Unfortunately, ours don't meet that qualification, but there is an exception built into the policy that states once we have shown that we have met our budget cut targets, then any remaining vacant positions, we would then be able to unfreeze and move towards rehiring. Since we just got our budget cut target, we've not been able to go down that road yet, which is also part of the reason why we are carrying for vacancies currently. So next steps. I really want to learn. I want to learn the fate of what the commissioners are going to do with House Bill 2015 as soon as possible. This, of course, is going to drive us either down option A or option B. And the sooner they can do this, the less work it is for staff because we're only working on one budget. We don't have to create two. So that is top of the line. But also want you all to know that we have been working on budget cut strategies for a few months now. We knew this was coming. We anticipate it for 2028 and into the future until some long-term solutions are achieved at the county level. So this will be unfortunately ongoing for a little bit. Anyway, once we have direction, or once we have put together our draft budgets, those go to the budget office for review. We would likely get some feedback from them. And then once they have approved those, we will share them back with the Parks Advisory Board. And then those, once also approved by the budget office, become our 2027 budget submission for the 2027 year. The timeline that is associated with this process is, as I mentioned, the call to budget. The letter just came out this past Monday. And we have our budget submissions are due in early August. We have about a month, which is pretty normal every year. And then the county, we have a budget presentation that takes place in September in front of the county commissioners. And then ultimately, there's a lot of work at the commissioner level to take all of the department budgets together, do some massaging of those, and then come to a final number. And then they end up approving the 2027 budget in December. So with that, I'm kind of at the tail end here. If anybody is interested on more information about the county's budget situation, the budget and finance webpage in the county, the webpage is up there, has a lot of information posted for public access. It includes these items. They have a variety of budget presentations shared and information that they presented at the 3 public meetings in June that we canceled in June for, and encourage you all to go attend. And with that, this slide is, I don't like the exclamation point, so I'm gonna stop sharing this. Maybe we'll stop here because that one's just too polite for this topic.
Thank you, Alex, for covering that. Any park advisory board members have comments? Linda?
Yeah, I'd like to know, I know I attended one of those budget meetings, spoke up and encouraged them to do the 10th of a percent increase. Well, they figured it out. This is a long-term problem and, you know, short-term solutions, and having staff continually working on budget crisis is extraordinarily inefficient, and it's hard for anybody to function. I was involved with the county when they went through the budget crisis back in 2008. There were tons of cuts. There was problems for years across the board. It was not handled well. And this has, you know, all the markings of more of that kind of ongoing crisis instead of dealing with the real problem. I thought the overall presentation, which I brought tonight, the county's presentation, I don't know if other board members attended. I see Jessica's got her hand up, but I didn't. I thought that the presentation showed a little bit of a bias. One, I thought it was really important. I think that almost 76 or more percent of the county's general fund budget goes for public safety. So, and parks, they had these kind of odd little pie charts. They started off with this dollar, which was real clear, and then they went to cascading pie charts. And I don't know if the rest of the world can follow 3 sets of cascading pie charts that are going different directions, but it looks to me like the parks is maybe a couple percent of the general fund, if that. So it is worrisome to me, because there was sort of a joke made as, oh, well, at least we're not selling parks yet. And I thought, that's a hard, but I wonder, as a Parks Advisory Board, I'm curious about other board members that went to it, but I wonder if we want to maybe talk about this a little bit more and maybe craft a letter to the commissioners. We are an advisory board. We don't get to make the calls. It is a hard position for the commissioners to be in, but this is a big deal problem that is not going to go away if we do crisis mode after crisis mode. And I see Jessica's got her hand up, so I'd like to go to her and see if anybody else did it. But I also wanted to share that I was in a conversation and meeting with Jefferson County a few weeks ago. Jefferson County has a it's not a bond measure, it's a levy lift limit, I believe, on their ballot for August of this year for additional funding specifically for parks. I know that there are other avenues to fund parks, and there are also other avenues to fund roads, to fund stormwater. There are park impact fees, which are frankly long overdue for increases. But I'm really concerned about sort of the crisis mode that kind of across the board decreases every year, throws all staff and all county functions into.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jessica.
I did attend the one in South Kitsap, and I agree with you. I like the dollar, but the other charts were a little bit confusing. I think the meeting was very informative. I think what I took away from that was the unfunded mandates that are coming down from the state, and the lack of funding and the funding that has been pulled at the state level. Particularly, I do want to just quickly say if anyone is interested in kind of diving in deeper. There is a website, Washington State Association of Counties, and it gives some really good information on exactly what's going on statewide with all the counties, because Kitsap is not alone. There's a lot of counties that are dealing with budget deficits. And I think public safety and also equal access to counsel and justice and those types of things are mainly funded by the counties. It's a constitutional right for them to have that right to counsel. And in other states, the state will help with funding that. But in Washington, that's not the case. So I think one thing that we can encourage the commissioners to do is to, and ourselves, of course, is to go and talk to our legislators and try to get better funding for these mandates that are required that are not funded. I did get to speak with Rolfus after the meeting for the budget, and she admitted that. She said, it's not responsible that they pass these things and know that they're not funded. So it's kind of we're dealing with something that it's, even if you do pass the tax, kind of like Alex was saying, it's not going to cover it's a short-term solution. It's not going to cover all of the deficit that we have. So we've got to look into what exactly over the last decade has been increasing and what's been going down as far as state funding and things go. So.
Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else have comments they'd like to share?
Did any of the other board members attend those presentations and have thoughts on how they handled? Did you think, Dawn, that it was very clear?
I went to the South meeting in Port Orchard. I thought it was a good meeting. I think they're in a tough spot. Some of the particular for me, one of the diagrams, and it had to do with the salaries. I think it was towards the end or was it at the very beginning? I thought that was misleading. Again, yeah.
It's got vertical bars on both sides for two different.
Well, I think for here, it talked about internal service. It was where they talked about the number of, oh yeah, here it is. They have general fund, other departments, and then funded positions. So for parks, they had 38 positions, and that's by far, I mean, it's more than any other thing listed on here except the deputy sergeants and the correction officers, which are at 114 and 190. So that was, somebody spoke to me and said, well, look how many people parks have on there. But in reality, the whole left-hand side of that chart, which is 27, 9, 14, 4, 9, and contains, keeps going with 114, 90, 33 positions. Those are all under safety funded positions. So just the way this was divided up, and with those numbers, I think it left parks at a disadvantage because it left people walking away. Well, parks should get rid of some of those positions. And I just thought that was really unfair. But I think they did a really good job of presenting it. And I think the presenters that were there gave some heartfelt feelings about it. So let's go to Larry.
Hi there. Okay. I'm coming at this from the position of the point of view of somebody who is in Lean Six Sigma process improvement facilitation, where you look at, first off, you look at customer demand. What does the customer want? And how are the certain goods and services being provided? And then from that point, you have to do a full process analysis of how we are providing the services both locally as parks and grand scheme of things, the county. And I don't know whether they have ever done a full process analysis of how we deliver goods and services. Because if you do a properly researched deep dive, you can find a whole lot of stuff that we're not very effective or efficient at providing. And that's, stuff that the customer wants, and our customers are the citizens of this county. But how we're doing it, where are we frittering away money, time, resources that could possibly be consolidated, moved around, things of this nature, both, like I said, inside parks and outside in the grand scheme of things. And absent of, if we don't have that kind of information in our hands, then all we can do is go, oh my gosh, we're running out of money. We got to do something. Somebody's got to do something. I mean, I've been in advocacy for way longer than a human being should. I've been plugged into state and federal government for way longer than somebody should. And it always turns around or turns into the, oh my God, somebody's got to do something. And when you hear those words, you should run. You should run as fast as you can, probably towards them to tackle them and tell them stop talking stupid and start using your brain. So, I'm not asking Alex for a solution at this point, but possibly this might be something that we could talk about in I don't know, maybe Parks Finance Subcommittee to start looking at it. I like I said, I've done this. I worked on some big league stuff when I was working with the Navy. So I think that's something we need to look at as a Parks Department and possibly provide the leadership to the other departments to try to do this too. Because I know government is not efficient. However, we can make it better. And with that, I will sit down and shut up for a while.
Thanks, Larry. Jessica?
I just wanted to mention real quick, because you had said about parks being represented at that meeting. I feel like because public safety is funded so much by the general fund and parks is it's a tiny bit compared to what public safety is, that there wasn't as much as a focus at that meeting on parks. And I think people didn't really get, there wasn't as much of a voice. Like I probably should have stood up and spoke a little bit about it. In hindsight, I regret not doing that because, no, I feel like the public safety aspect of it, because you had the sheriff there and you had the prosecutor there, that were speaking on what's happening with the impact on those areas. But there wasn't anything on the impact on parks. And I think that was a mistake because it does impact a lot of people in the community when parks is facing budget cuts.
Jessica, I really agree with what you said there. And that was one thing I kind of regretted too, because afterwards I was talking with somebody, and for me, it was like, well, because there was a joke about we haven't gotten rid of parks yet or closed them down or sold them off or whatever. But it was, for me, where do these kids go then if we can't supply parks for them? And then they become public safety issues. Parks is already dealing with a lot of public safety issues. They're continually dealing with trash in parks, dealing with fires in parks, homeless people in parks, and things like that. But parks provides, I think, that really fundamental place for people to go and do things and hang out, and it keeps them out of trouble in some cases. But yeah, I think they're a fundamental part of our community, and we should consider them a high priority. Go ahead.
I'd like one. I don't know if Alex has an answer to this question, but I was wondering, I was looking online and didn't find an answer, but I know that the commissioners are thinking about in the long run that there might have to be another an elected, people voting for what they would like to fund, right? And so they're a little concerned about the idea of doing a councilmanic, 10th of % sales tax increase and then have people say, oh yeah, and then what? So one of the things I was wondering is it possible to do that 10th of % sales tax increase for a few years, period, that then it goes away and they propose a longer term solution? It seemed to me that this is a complex issue enough that they need to really take the time to think through all the different options, roads, parks, stormwater, public safety issues, look at the various options. And if it's just crisis mode, they'll never figure it out. But I can also understand, having been an elected official, that you don't want to create a barrier by, doing a short-term solution now, like that 10th of % sales tax, pissing people off who then vote no next time, when what you really need is the longer-term solution. So my question is it possible? Is there an option to do that on a temporary basis, have it go away when the commissioners have developed a long-term solution?
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure, but you were getting at something that is extremely important to me that I would encourage the board to consider as possibly something to either reach out to the board member who appointed each of you, or as a collective, like you mentioned earlier, draft a letter, draft a message to the commissioners indicating, please, please, please work towards a long-term solution while we put this short-term solution into place. And because, yeah, I'll just say that I would like to see more movement towards a longer-term solution. And I haven't seen it yet.
And I'm wondering, Alex, if we were going to craft that letter, I mean, I expect there's a little bit of awkwardness, with the park staff being part of it, because we are essentially then, as a Parks Advisory Committee, we would be drafting a letter that is directly to the commissioners on issues that we care about, which is parks funding and parks staff. Is that a meeting that you would want park staff to be part of, or should we meet separately and craft that letter and bring it back to the board, say at the next board meeting?
We could do it either way. I mean, I'm kind of thinking about this in reference to the last time the board kind of agreed to create a letter / message that went to the commissioners, and it landed and it helped move and make changes in the way that some of our staff were funded in certain ways. So, which you're all familiar with, the forestry fund, et cetera. We don't need to divulge into that, but I want to reiterate, your voice does matter. The commissioners do listen. And so whether it's and this isn't anything that like has to get done by next meeting or anything, because the problem's still going to be there. So it can be something that if you want to, over the course of the next couple meetings, kind of come back to and edit and tweak as a group, by all means, we can help do that. If you want to assign maybe a subcommittee to work on it, and that those subcommittees are less than a quorum, and so you wouldn't need to either have staff there, or you wouldn't be bound to OPM laws. So.
And it looks like our finance and budget committee is myself, Jessica, and Larry, but there are just 3 of us, and we could actually have 4 people. Am I right? Or are you?
No, we didn't. I'm sorry. I just did orientation, and we didn't enter to the finance, right? Subcommittee. Okay, so yes, it's just the 3 currently.
So maybe at least the three of us, and I don't know, we could even have Dawn participate if you wanted to, right? Because we're four,
That-
so we're less than a quorum.
That's still less than a quorum.
Okay. And then craft a letter and bring it back to the board. I just think
Certainly.
this is a really big, important topic for concern. And I know, years ago, I was involved in some discussions with kind of political strategists looking at parks funding. And, at that point in time, there were discussions about metropolitan park districts and other mechanisms. It sounds like there are some additional mechanisms now. I am curious as to why Jefferson County is doing this levy lift limit, and I understand it was because there were some areas of the county that were in opposition to, I think, a metropolitan park district. We may have some complexity on that in our county as well because we have existing metropolitan park districts. So I don't know, and I don't know if Alex, that's an area that you have any background in on the various options that could be out there to augment parks, because I believe personally, I think people, if they saw this little dollar sign they broke down that showed that, of your property taxes, only 7% goes to general fund for the county operation. The other 83% is going to things that aren't the county, and also know that, the Parks Department is really only probably a couple percent of that 7%. It's kind of pennies on the dollar. And I don't have any, knowledge right now of what the various options are. And obviously it would take, the commissioners would be looking at an array of options, but.
Yeah, I know a bit about some of the various options that are available because I've looked into them in the past, both for Kitsap County as well as, ironically, for City of Port Townsend, where I used to work in Jefferson County. I would suggest the board consider language, including in their message, about not only, hey, county as an organization, take a look at, long-term opportunities to fix the budget, but also, put a message in there about parks. You are the Parks Advisory Board, and encourage, investigation into sustainable operations for the Parks Department that may include opportunities such as MPDs or other mechanisms. It could be, because there's a variety of them out there. So, I mean, with that, Parks Department this year hired a consultant to analyze our park impact fees. You mentioned that they hadn't been, and that is solely a capital funding element for us. And that last study was done in 2001. The rate was adopted in 2003. The rate that was adopted in 2003 was adopted at 25% of what the recommended rate was. And it hasn't been updated in 23 years now. And so we are way behind for supporting the Parks Department, both in the capital as well as the operations. So this year we're doing a study to look at updating our capital side of things. Next year, we intend to focus on looking at opportunities for the operations side. Which would include some of the stuff that you're talking about. How we go about doing that, I'm not exactly sure yet. Likely bringing in a consultant to help facilitate. But I don't know how I'm going to fund it yet. So if we encourage the commissioners to support it, that would help.
So should we have that, try and get a meeting of the finance committee together to discuss it? I'd be glad to draft a letter to start, and then we could, chop and talk about it.
Okay, so let's go ahead with that. We have the Finance and Budget Committee with Larry, Jessica, and Linda. We have room for one more person. If somebody would like to join that for this discussion and working on this letter, please contact Linda. And Linda, we do not have subcommittee chairs, would you be willing to head this up then, this particular project of this?
Sure.
Okay, so if you're interested in being on this committee for this budget letter discussions, I'm going to ask you to talk to Linda by, say, a week from today to get onto there so that they can start working on this. Then you can bring a letter or recommendation to the board, and the board can act once we have a recommendation from the subcommittee. And I think you should also feel free to send the letter around for preview before any meetings. That would be appropriate, I think, correct? Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? Okay. So thank you, Linda, for taking that on. Any other questions regarding the budget for Alex? Okay, let's move on to the director's report.
Thank you for no more questions on the budget. It is not a favorite topic to talk about. Okay, on the director's report, we have a few items that we wanted to highlight. And I've got Alex and Irene with me to do such that. And we'll have Irene go first.
Well, I'll follow up the budget talk with some good news. We have our new wildlife ecologist who started on Monday. So this is a long time coming to try and get this position and to get this person hired. So our new biologist's name is Adam Samara. He has worked in Kitsap County as the WDFW area habitat biologist for a number of years. So we're really lucky to have him joining us here as he's already familiar with the county and a lot of our ecosystems and constraints and areas of opportunity. Adam has 10 years of experience in the wildlife field, and he is a really good generalist. So he has worked with mammals, birds, herpetofauna, as well as salmonids. So we're excited to have him joining us and look forward to working with him. The other topic I want to talk about today is the future of our brush harvest program. So our brush harvest program started in approximately 2013, which allows for the commercial harvest of salal and evergreen huckleberry for the floral industry in select parks. It generates approximately $20,000 per year of revenue. However, it has no ecological benefit. So as we have been developing our natural resource program and being clearer about managing our parks for our conservation value, we decided to look into whether this program made sense to continue with. Brush harvest is considered a special forest product, and it's a common revenue generating practice in forests managed for commercial use. However, it's not common to allow this use in areas primarily designated for conservation. For example, DNR managed land, brush harvest is only allowed in active timberlands and is not permitted in natural resource conservation areas, commonly known as NRCAs, or natural areas, which are the DNR land designation most analogous with Kitsap County parks. Neighboring counties with similar park structures like Pierce and King County also don't allow brush harvest on their lands, primarily managed for conservation, i.e. parklands. So our current license has expired, and we've been looking into the pros and cons of continuing this program. This information was presented to the commissioners this morning, as well as some memos have been circulating with them about this work. The staff recommendation is, as this activity has no distinct ecological benefit, limited monetary or local economic benefit, and has a negative impact on park visitors. We get a number of concerns and complaints from park visitors about there being additional vehicles in the parks and why are we allowing this to happen when we don't have commercial natural resource extraction in any other way. So the staff recommendation is to not continue with this program. The commissioners are interested in learning more about how this might impact local labor forces, as the brush harvesters are frequently from Central American immigrant communities, so they are already a impacted community, and this could potentially impact them further. although the acreage of the Kitsap County Park lands leased for brush harvest are less than 1% of the total land that either of these companies that have brush harvest with us lease overall. So we are going to gather more information on the amount of labor hours and potentially people that may be impacted by the elimination of this program on parklands, and get back to the commissioners to see how they would like to proceed. And those are my updates.
Can I ask or make some comments on that? As a steward in Coulter Creek Heritage Park for multiple years, I did encounter, and the people were great, but we did encounter a fair bit of trash, or you would find a whole pile of cut salal that apparently just got forgotten accidentally or something. But I agree, there were lots of questions, and from stewards as well as the public coming out there. And I think it's funny, we're talking about budget and here's 20,000, but really the 20,000 is very minimal. I mean, it seems like a lot, but it's not. And I think we have staff correctly that have to field the questions that come in. We also have staff that have to deal with the contracts and things like that. So I support the parks choosing to go that route, especially since our parks are we have a strong commitment for the environment within our parks, and I really like to see our staff working towards that. But anybody else have comments on that? Thank you, Irene.
I have a question. I believe that money used to be the only source of funds that the Parks Department would pass on to park stewardship groups. Am I wrong? Because I remember for a while it was like, you guys can each big park can have $2,000. That was the limit, and I thought it came from this money.
That is how the funds were managed originally when I got here, that they were there to help support the stewardship program. We have since done tons of restructuring to the budget and our operations, and we fund the volunteer program, stewardship activities out of our special revenue account. So it doesn't come out of here anymore.
And the contract itself actually states that those monies were supposed to be used for restoration purposes. So, how that was interpreted in the past is a little up in the air.
So
We'll get to at the end.
I volunteer up at Newberry Hill a lot, and I've seen a lot of brush picking going on up there. I think we have a meeting tomorrow night. I would like to talk to them because I don't see it as a huge problem. When they started, yeah, people were like, what are these cars doing now? And now, but most people that are in there know what they're doing. And, they're now making sure that there's portable toilets there when the brush pickers are there. They have to have that. And, some things that the parks, stewards have worked with the company that comes in. So I would like to talk to them, to my Newberry Hill, to find out how they feel about it. But I don't think I can't tell when they leave that they've even been there, honestly. So.
Yeah, the memo in the packet does state that there's kind of a neutral environmental impact to it. There are some studies that show that post-harvest, there is a big flush in growth. There's more vegetation growth in areas that have been harvested versus not harvested. However, that doesn't look into how the rhizomes and the carbohydrate resources that are stored are being impacted, or the berry production. So there's some unknowns in how this type of harvest impacts ecosystems. And it's also just inconsistent with other park policies. We don't allow for commercial harvests of mushrooms or berries or anything like that. So it's also in part just trying to be consistent with our policies.
There's people in there taking a lot of mushrooms.
All right, thank you. Any comments online? Okay. All right, next up, did you have more, Alex, now?
It's my turn. All right. So moving into our admin program, I'll start with communications first. So for July, it's actually National Recreation and Park Association Month. So at the end of June, the Board of County Commissioners passed a proclamation that recognizes in Kitsap County July as National Recreation and Park Association Month. So you may, if you follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram, we have been doing multiple posts every day celebrating and telling our story. The theme for this month, which is selected by the National Recreation and Park Association organization, they picked the power of. So we've been focusing the campaign on the power of parks and recreation and strengthening communities through connection, play, nature, belonging, and well-being. So we're really trying to use this as an opportunity to start telling our story. So we plan on celebrating this not just in July, but continuing through the end of the year at least, telling our story and sharing more about our parks. Also, with it being the Parks Month, July 17th is also Parks Professionals Day. So we'll be doing more posts celebrating our staff and all the hard work that we do to take care of our parks. Let me share real quick. If you don't follow us, I did have some of the pictures prepared so I can share those with you this evening. So again, this is just some of what you'll see on social media, just pictures. We have videos as well, telling our story and why parks are important to our community. Oops, wrong way. And so here's another one focusing on nature. So you'll see, there you go, that they change week to week, what we're focusing on. So if you haven't, please go like us, follow us, please share the content that will help boost us and get us more content so that it's out there for the community. The next item I will touch on under admin is our volunteer program. So currently, we did 28 stewardship events in June. So again, these are our groups that are out there working in our parks. This does not account for individual group people going out on their own or it's strictly more public kind of facing work parties led by our staff or our lead stewards. So in June, again, we did 28. In July, we currently have 31 scheduled. And then in August, we're looking at 32 events. In addition, Bree and I, our maintenance and operations supervisor, we met with the Washington Youth Academy and we scheduled 8 events for August through the end of the year at various parks. We currently, something really exciting is our new program roles and our new way of operating. We have multiple groups operating now at Banner, multiple groups operating at Port Gamble, and multiple groups operating at Newberry. So it's really exciting to see the new program roles pick up, and we're really looking to expand and carry that through all of our parks. The next item I will jump into are the events and just want to highlight we're in the middle of our really busy event season. This weekend, specifically here at the fairgrounds, we will have our monster truck event as well as the Kitsap Pride. easily will bring in over 6,000 people on Saturday alone here in one location. So we are staying busy with events, and yeah, I think that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, I'll take them.
Anybody have questions for Alex? Thank you, Alex. Both of you.
I've got just a couple more items to follow up on. The members of the subcommittee, the Capital Projects and Parks I think that's what it's called, has met over the last couple months. We have been working on the annual update to the 6-year capital improvement plan, also dubbed our CIP. Our CIP we update every single year, and it is a timeline associated for our upcoming capital projects. And that is currently underway. We just did a briefing to the commissioners this past Monday. They listened to an early CIP updates from Parks, from the Roads Division, and from Facilities Division for the county. They have been highly supportive of ensuring that the projects that we're targeting, that we are getting the REIT funding that we need for those, because that REIT funding, also with that change in 2025 law, has opened up the doors for the funding to go to other types of projects that it once didn't. So it's no longer mostly a parks fund. We now have to compete for it. On that note, I mentioned earlier, we're updating our park impact fees. Well, we are doing a study to hopefully update our park impact fees. Ultimately, updating them will be up to the commissioners. But we're in the kind of the early stages of this. We have a contract with Bowman Consulting Group, or they used to be FCS Financial, and they have done a ridiculous amount of park impact fee studies across the state of Washington. And we're happy to have them on board doing ours as well. At this stage, we are simply providing them with a bunch of information and data on our park system, dollar values, projected growth into the future, size of home, et cetera, so that they can do math that is way above my head to figure this out. But we're excited for both of those moving forward. Next month, in August, we will have more of a solid CIP to bring to the Parks Advisory Board. It's kind of in a drafty state right now based on a lot of the analysis that we've done both at the staff level as well as with the Parks subcommittee. And next month we'll be one step closer to having it more in a final draft phase. And so we'll be bringing that back, and Carmen will be with us then to do the presentation.
I did have a comment I wanted to say, and it relates to what you said earlier, Larry, about, digging deep and thinking about where we can save and be more efficient and things like that. And I just wanted to sing the praise of the staff again, because I had the opportunity to be part of the capital projects again this year. And for me, this last time we went through it, by taking the extra time Carmen put in last year to go through and work out a process and things like that. This year it seemed much more streamlined, easier to get through everything and make decisions. And I haven't been involved with what M&O has been doing, but I've been hearing it at the sidelines about some of the efficiencies and things like that they've been doing. And I know some of us are impatient because these things take time, and it's like you have to pull back and kind of stop doing some things, and people are upset about that. But in the long run, I think it's really helping, and I'm seeing some efficiency improvements and communication improvements. So I appreciate that. I know there always can be more done, Larry, and we probably need to think about that in other ways, but I think I'm appreciative of what you guys are doing and the difficult situation the budget and staffing are putting you into. So is there anything else about the director's report you would like to discuss?
Thank you for that. I appreciate the comments, and we'll be certain to share that with Bree. So thanks,
Yeah.
and the maintenance team. The one last item is just a quick recognition of the synthetic turf field replacement that is happening at Gordon 1 across the street from us. It is at least 80% through, almost done. It is intended to be completed by the end of this month so that it is ready to literally roll out the soccer balls. Chris, you'll be ready to go come August. So we are very excited for that. It's the biggest capital project we have this year. And so we're excited to see it come to completion. So that was it. Thank you.
Alex, in the planning program, I noticed there was an update here on the Port Gamble Framework Master Plan. And I think it was Beverly said that there had been a meeting with KEC or something about the contract for that. Can you give us a little more information on that? I was also, I knew we were waiting for the wildlife study, but I wasn't sure what incorporating park capacity information is, and I wasn't sure if the user conflict on trails issue is gonna be documenting or getting any information or actual user conflicts, because personally, I'm out there all the time and I haven't seen user conflicts. I hear about them here, but I do think there's a bit of political motivation in some of those.
Sure. So the three items that are on here are pretty much the premise of the scope of the contract and what we are looking at for the update. So the update, the framework is in a draft state currently. We're looking to incorporate the wildlife study into it, make any associated changes that may come from that incorporation. We're also doing additional public engagements to discuss user conflicts on trails and see if we may make any changes in the framework based on how that engagement goes. And then the capacity is actually the park capacity component is an interesting item that is something that actually was recommended that Joe Lubisher has talked about in the past. And we are bringing in a sub-consultant into this to take a look at how do we, from a management of public lands perspective, balance those lands when they provide dual opportunity of active recreation with conservation values, and how do we ensure that we aren't adding so much activity that it's starting to degrade on the conservation side of things. And so that kind of comes out in this park capacity component, and that's what that one is about. It is a study of when is enough too much, and kind of understanding that. I can't explain it any more than that because we haven't done the study yet, but we will look to incorporate that too. What that may look like is it may tell us that, hey, there is a limitation on number of parking lots that we put up or size of parking lots. A parking lot is a physical thing that we can manage and construct to provide parameters on access into parks so that it's not just an open gate for everybody, which would, have negative impacts on the natural environment. And so, but if those don't exist, then we have opportunities for other things. So it is just looking at how do we balance this, and I'm kind of excited for this because if we can come up with a methodology through this opportunity at the framework, it's something that we could then apply to other parks in our system.
So I'm surprised. One, I'm pretty surprised because my understanding is, the framework is finished in 2022. We've been waiting for it for a long time. I did certainly understand and believe that the wildlife study was going to be part of the update, but this sounds like that the idea is by limiting access, you can kind of keep more people out of the parks to try and, I mean, I haven't heard anything about this. Is the first time, and I was also surprised that there was kind of one-on-one meetings with some of the KEC leadership to review a contract that we didn't know about.
We have one-on-one meetings with people in the public all the time.
Okay.
Those are not necessarily things that get shared with the Parks Advisory Board all the time too. Yes, Kitsap folks from the KEC engage with staff to understand more about the framework update and what was going into that and how it was being approached. And so we had an open conversation with them about it to answer their questions.
So can, say, the leadership of the Port Gamble stewards also get the same information that was provided to them?
Sure.
Okay.
I had a question about the capacities. You mostly referenced it comparing humans and nature, but also capacity is important for the human enjoyment of the park. I mean, we want to also limit that. And my first hearing of that was when Aaron Nix was discussing Coulter Creek Heritage Park and taking into account like neighborhoods that are nearby and having walking people coming in and doing evaluations of how many people could be using parks that way, adding the parking lots and how many, and using that as a mechanism to enhance not only our environment, but also the user experience so that you're not having hundreds of people on a trail that really could only accommodate maybe 50 or something.
Correct. I don't want this to come across as this is a mechanism to limit access into public spaces. That's not what it's about. That could be part of what is a result from it, but ultimately this is ensuring that we are also doing the other side of things and managing our conservation areas responsibly and making sure that we aren't allowing too much activity into areas that we are also managing for conservation that is going to have a negative impact on it. So it is literally just looking at how do we best balance this.
So my concern and hope is that we really focus on objectivity. We hear a lot of the same people coming in and complaining, saying their concerns, and frankly, a lot of times they're objecting to bicyclists in specifically the Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park. And I would hope that there would be some and that's why I'm reacting a little bit to these two new things being added to that I didn't know about. And, we've been waiting for a lot of years for that framework update, for the framework to move forward. And a lot of things have been on hold. To me, a good thing that can come out of this is looking at objective data. Are people out on the trails really actually afraid of each other, because I've been out there an awful lot and I've never had an issue. And other than being here, listening to the complaints, I haven't seen those issues. I've seen bicyclists waving to horseback riders and people having civil discussions and nice conversations on the trails. I'm just not seeing the problems that I hear about when we're up here. And I'm also a little concerned. I also know that when I went down to the Banner Forest with Dawn, I was stunned by when I walked around how you could hear the conversations on the next trail. The trail density per acre on Banner Forest is like night and day from Port Gamble, yet we only hear the concerns and safety fears about Port Gamble, which if you looked at human beings per acre has got to be a pretty different density of activity versus some other areas. So I'm not, I just hope that it comes back with some objective information that is looking not, at all parks in the same kind of context. Are there overall, what kind of density of use is okay in this park and that park, not just focusing on some things that I do feel is kind of politically motivated about one park. So that's, kind of the background of my reaction.
I'm going to jump in there with my comment too, because I have concerns when I've occasionally seen things or decisions made that I don't feel are science backed. And for me, it's some recent decisions with commissioners regarding some park things. And I have been frustrated that we have staff, we've just hired a wildlife person, we have plant people, we have a forester, and I too want to see these very objective scientific decisions made. And I want our park staff who we've hired with these degrees in these areas, experience in these areas, I want to encourage the community, our commissioners, to listen to the science and let these people do some of the surveys and types of things they need to do. I think it's really frustrating from my point of view to see people come in and make recommendations about our parks that may not have walked through our parks very much, may not have spent time in these parks over the years, and we're disregarding information that people who have spent the time, have the experience, the background, the scientific integrity, and we're dismissing their recommendations. And I find that concerning at a variety of levels for me. But I'm sorry, were there any more comments regarding Jen? Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, I just had a couple clarifying questions for Alex about the contracts then. You mentioned the contract kind of encompassing those three elements, but then talking about the park capacity component specifically mentioned bringing an additional consultant on board. So is that two different contracts, and are those contracts finalized and open, or are they people already been hired under those? I guess at what point in the process are those two contracts?
So it's one contract, and well, there's kind of two contracts, but there's three sub-consultants to the primary. So Fisher Baum is the primary. There's a separate consultant who's doing the capacity information. There's AECom who are extending their contract. They did the wildlife study, so they will be working on this also. And then the third one is a public engagement firm who will be leading all of the public engagement meetings and those different opportunities. And then Fisher Balma will be the primary and leading the entirety of the project.
Okay, great. Thanks for that information. And then just to circle back to, I know Beverly's comment was wondering what the Parks Advisory Board's thoughts were on the contracts, but not having seen the contracts, it's hard to provide comment. So would also just, yeah, be curious if we could get a copy of the contracts.
When it's approved, I'll be happy to share it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments, feedback from the board members? Okay, before we have public comment, we have our district representative reports. And this is the time when the district representatives can bring information back from their district, concerns, things like that. But I always love to share and hear the positive things that are happening in the district. So does anybody have a district representative report they'd like to share? Linda, I mean, Nancy, sorry.
Well, Newberry Hill Heritage Park, not the stewards, the applesauce gang. Does everybody know about the applesauce gang? Yeah, it's anyway, a subset of the stewards, and they work typically on Wednesdays, and they have been working steadily at redoing the children's forest, because it really got to the point where we had to close it and block it off. It was the boardwalks were not safe, and especially not for kids or strollers or wheelchairs. It's ADA accessible, and the trail is something, I think, less than a mile through there, but it's a delightful little forest that's designed to allow strollers to go through and wheelchairs. They have pulled out all the boardwalks and are they've been asking the public to bring broken concrete they have at their house, and they're filling in that pathway and working every Wednesday on that. So there have been suddenly a bunch of break-ins up at the roundabout parking lot. And was sitting here thinking, how could we put some kind of security camera up there where, it could record and just be accessed if there is a break-in that we know of, to see if it picks up the license plates and so on of the vehicles or the people that are doing it. Because, I mean, personally, when I first started using Newberry, I was probably, I'd been going up there for a while, but not that long. And I parked there and I had my passenger front window smashed and checkbook taken and all kinds of stuff. So I know it kind of goes in spells, and it's happening now. I've heard a couple things. So anyway, parks I took a walk recently, and Old Loop, which is the 2.7 mile loop that was expanded when they logged to make it actually drivable, so that now the fire department could potentially come in, because they won't come in if they don't have two exits. And so that gives that ability. But they've been working on the Scotch broom. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. The Salao and the Huckleberry are finally filling in, and that was a wall of Scotch broom. I mean, it was just a wall, and it's not anymore. The other one is the KSS Trail, if anybody knows where that is. That was okay. So those of you that hear all the complaints about the logging, that was the area that was logged the very first year, and it was awful. They made a mess. Changed companies, totally different experience the next time. Well, I just quit going on that trail, and I took it recently to cut up to the school, and was blown away at how beautiful it is, and a number of birds and stuff in there with the brush. So that's my report.
Any other board members would like to share their experiences? Okay, how about public comment? We'll start here with, oh, wait,
Jessica.
one more. Jessica?
Yeah, thank you. I did want to mention that at the South Kitsap Regional Park, they have on the entrance to the um, the baseball field and the skate park and all of that, they've started the construction for the roundabout, and it seems to be going pretty well. I think the community seems to be responding okay to it. You still see kids at the skate park riding, and access seems to not really be impeded too much there. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like when they're all done. I'm sure it's going to look way different. They've cut some trees and yeah, it'll be nice because I know that it's really hard to turn left out of that on that road coming out of there. So I think people will be excited I mean, I don't know, one more roundabout. It's kind of hit or miss with roundabouts, but I think it'll hopefully be a good thing for everyone when they're all done. I'm curious how long it will take them, but they're busy people getting it done pretty quick. So.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I wanted to mention that I recently had the opportunity after had put together the Kitsap Forest and Bay timeline for working with Alex and Alex on the North Gateway grand opening up in Port Gamble. I was asked to do a similar presentation to the WWRC board. WWRC is the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Commission, which is the volunteer nonprofit that advocates for the WWRP funding, which is the huge source of state grants for all kinds of projects. So, whether it's athletic fields or conservation areas or everything, they're the funding source. And they were particularly interested in partnerships and also how their funding was used. And it was pretty interesting to go through the 20-year history of that project and double check the timeline I'd done for the North Gateway and in the RCO website, and make sure it was all, but to see the grant sources at every stage and how all the local funds and the state funds were leveraged together with the federal funds, and has built this incredible resource, because the Kitsap Forest and Bay is not just the Port Gamble Park, which is the biggest park, not just in Kitsap County, but it's the biggest county park in the whole state. But it's not just that, it's also the North Kitsap Heritage Park was part of that, those two phases. And now Great Peninsula Conservancy has grown that center portion of the arc of open space to 800 acres. So, combined, you're over 5,000 acres. It was really remarkable to kind of put that together in the sequence and see how all those different funding sources added up to kind of a miracle. From when we started, we had a whole lot of hope and nothing more. So that was a nice process and really well received. I thought it was very positively received from that board. And since many of those members are people who serve on the evaluation committee for future county projects, it's always a good thing for them to see how important all that funding was for our local community. But I also did see, I hadn't realized, I know that GPC, Great Peninsula Conservancy, has another big grant in, and so does the Y for Baldfield. So they're looking at, additional expansion of conservation and recreation areas up there in North Kitsap, which would be kind of the culmination. If that happened, it would be maybe a 25-year culmination of the really big vision that happened back in 2007. So if there's another opportunity sometime at this board, that was a 20-minute presentation, kind of going through pretty quickly, but if this board is interested in that, it might be nice to share that.
I wanted to just put in two little things. There was just a major donation to the Peninsula Wilderness or Conservancy at Little Beef Creek, a 15-acre going up that creek, and which is big because that's going to protect that. And then also to gentleman I knew, Dr. Gass, when they were selling his property, it was 2 lots and they bought that parcel and finally have come out publicly with this GASS, GASS, that was his last name. And it's, I think probably close to 300 feet of Hood Canal waterfront, very much wetlands in part of it, salmon bearing Little Anderson Creek. And there's been a lot of work going on there. So it's kind of exciting because you can actually, if you want to, and have the stamina to do it, get from there into Newberry Hill. Because the headwaters for Little Anderson Creek are in Newberry at the top of Rhodey Hill. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention those two just were published in their most recent magazine, and they're definitely right together.
Thank you. Let's move to public comments, and Rick.
I think you have.
Oh, we have one more, Jen.
Hey, sorry, just while folks were talking, I thought I would like to mention just how great it's been having the North Gateway Trailhead and parking lot open up at Port Gamble. It's been really great. I've gone up there for a number of different excursions with hiking, biking, walking, running, and no matter which of the trailheads I've gone to, and I've gone to, I think, 3 of them in the last month, and it's just been cool to see sort of the reset of some of the traffic patterns. And you just notice like there's usually always parking now available at the Bayview Trailhead, more parking available at Stottlemyre because more of the bikers are now going up to that North Gateway Trailhead. Not to say that I haven't encountered, bikers still down at the South Stottlemyre Trailhead. It's a great place to take folks to learn. Like I took my sister-in-law there who's used to road biking, but since there's no real safe road biking routes around Kitsap, I was like, well, how do you feel about trying mountain biking? So we tried some of the easier trails and logging roads down there, starting from the Stottlemyre Trailhead. And even on a Friday afternoon, there was lots of space to park in the summertime. So it was really great to see. And it's just kind of opened up, I think, hopefully, more access for different types of users at the spots that kind of cater to their needs anyway. So thank you guys for all the work on that North Gateway parking lot.
Thank you. Okay, Rick, comment. Let's hear you. Stand up, tell us who you are, and 3 minutes.
Rick Feeney. I'm going to need about 10 seconds. All I'm going to say is regarding the Salal, talk to the florists before if you take it away from them, it may really discourage their accoutrements to their floral arrangements.
Anybody else? Okay. David.
David Onstead, Port Orchard. I want to talk about the history and logic of limitations carrying capacity in parks property. It'll become obvious as I go forward. Buildings, there's carrying capacity of buildings, carrying capacity of parking lots, carrying capacity of ball fields. You don't allow more than 2 teams on the same field at one time. What if we all of a sudden had 75 soccer teams that wanted to use the facilities? You would have to turn some away because we've all agreed there's a carrying capacity. Disc golf, they have learned to take turns as they go through the more natural areas that they're using for disc golf. So they're self-imposing a carrying capacity. And I'm sure they would love us to have a official carrying capacity for hikers walking around in the middle of their disc golf fields. Maybe you have signs posted, but anyway, imagine what would happen if all of a sudden hikers wanted to use disc golf courses. The ride park, people have learned either at the ride park to take turns when they're using it. Obviously, another carrying capacity is no pedestrians. That's an obvious carrying capacity for one type of group. And some trails are only one way for bicyclists. And so the carrying capacity is a dimensional carrying capacity. So just to end this, should hikers on trails take turns? Should we have a metered ramp that goes into each trailhead that says, oh, there's already 4 people on the trail? They have to move forward another 100 feet before you can go forward with a green light. that is an obvious way to deal with it, but not necessarily the best way to deal with it. So in other words, carrying capacity is a very logical and historical factor that you can consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the room that would like to comment? And I believe we have. Oh, wait, we do. Bradley.
Dang it. Name's Bradley Berry, no relation. What was I going to say? Don't start the timer yet. Oh, okay. Budget thing. That sucks. I live in Kingston. I use the Kingston Ferry a lot. If you've ever used that, you've noticed it is now a sponsorship mecca. Everywhere is sponsored. Shocking. Washington State Department of Transportation struggling for money. It looks like they're selling ad space all over public transportation to generate revenue. Dad always told me, if you have the opportunity to make a decision, do it or someone will make it for you. So it would really stink to see sponsorship banners lining trail systems and parking lots and parks. To prevent that, things like picking brush and other ways, it might just be $20,000 here or there, but that'll stack up if you can find 10 different ways to generate 20 grand. So yeah, no sponsors. Don't do that. Or like auction off. Let us pick which ones they are. That might be fun, actually. What was the other one? Oh, the new contract thing. I thought the North Woods contract was cleared to build the replacement trails to go in where the logging operations happen. And that now is back on hold for the wildlife / new stuff. Is it? Okay. Yeah, okay. Like Linda said, sounds like some excessive red tape to just prevent progress. Maybe it's not. I will tell you, in the other parks that I go to throughout the state, Whatcom County, King County, that are primarily hiking and biking type trail systems, the more they grow, the more people come to them, and it generates more money in the economy around the park, not just the park. And you can also recoup money on events that happen at the parks. So growth is not always bad in a park. It might feel like it's getting congested because we're using, 4% of Fort Campbell Park for events, but I'd like to see some more effort into generating income rather than taxing, but that's because I pay taxes. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. And online we have Judy.
Judy, you need to unmute.
Judy, are you still there? Is there anyone else online that, okay, we have no other commenters online. Judy, I'm going to give you one more chance.
You could.
Oh, there you are.
So this is Don Willott, and Judy and I share one computer to attend the meeting. I wanted to add just a bit to what Linda said about the WWRC board meeting in Port Campbell. That really her presentation was exceptional. And the folks, the board members in attendance recognized that and had some really thoughtful questions. And I believe that the information that we have coalesced in part to have good material for the opening of the North Gateway, that the content is exceptional. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to have Linda present. And just to share that we have ultimately now gotten to 5,000 acres because of the level of collaboration, the visible collaboration that supported the county and the tribes and the timber company and Forterra to work together. So that spirit of collaboration is one of the things that is important, I think, for everybody who's interested in what happens in the future to be involved. A related thing that I want to highlight is that it was especially important to me to have a chance at the in preparation for the North Gateway opening to try out manual wheelchair, and found that I was unable to get off of the ADA parking pad and cross over to the Sound Olympics Trail. And I mentioned before that I was impressed that the two Alexes and Bree worked together and managed to make it much better. Not excellent, not great, but much better by adding quarter minus compacted. Well, we have now 3,500 acres after an incredibly steep hill. You have a very small level-ish area. Maybe 10% of our population have some amount of disability. And so we have a huge resource, and people with disabilities really have no access to that 3,500 acres, at least those with, there's some disabilities where you can still use but for anybody with the mobility using a wheel device, it's a problem. So I was encouraged. Something that came out of the WWRC engagement was to have the notice that they pointed out of RCO, the Recreation and Conservation Office, exploring the possibility of having grant programs specifically to make parks more accessible. And I would strongly encourage that we pay attention to that and work with the RCO staff. Leah Dolan is the person. Years ago, I was a different Rory Calhoun. So I think we should work at coordinating on accessibility, and notably for our heritage parks in the North End. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. No one else have comments? Do I have any motions to adjourn?
So moved. I move we adjourn.
Oh, I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second, any comments? Okay, all in favor, right hand. Unanimous there. I don't even have anybody opposed, left hand. Okay. The motion is carried. We are adjourned.
See y'all next time around.